Lila lived in a small, dimly lit apartment on the edge of the city. The walls were old, with patches of peeling paint, and the floor creaked with every step. She had grown used to the noises and the uncomfortable spaces, because life had taught her that comfort was a luxury she could not afford. She shared the apartment with her younger brother Sam, who had been sick for as long as she could remember. Lila's days were filled with long hours at her job at a local diner, and evenings spent caring for Sam. Money was always tight, and sometimes there was barely enough to buy food for both of them. Yet, despite the hardships, Lila had a spirit that refused to be broken. She faced every challenge with determination and a quiet kindness that touched the people around her. That particular evening, the sky was dark and heavy with rain. The city streets were almost empty, except for the occasional car splashing through puddles and the hurried steps of people trying to get home. Lila had just returned from her job, exhausted and soaked from the rain that had caught her on her way back. She unlocked her apartment door, trying not to think about the bills that were waiting for her on the small table by the window. Sam was already asleep, tucked under the thin blanket on the small bed they shared. Lila quietly placed her wet coat on a chair and went to the kitchen to prepare some tea, hoping it would warm her up. As she sipped her tea and looked out the small window at the empty street, she noticed two figures standing by the corner. One was a man, tall and wearing a coat that looked worn and damp. The other was a little boy holding onto the man's hand and shivering. Lila's first thought was to ignore them. It was late, and she was tired, but something about the boy's small, scared figure tugged at her heart. She remembered what it felt like to be afraid, to have nowhere to go when the world seemed too harsh. Without thinking too much, she put on her coat and stepped outside. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, but the street was still wet and slippery. Lila approached the man and the boy. "Are you two okay?" she asked softly. The man looked up, and Lila noticed the exhaustion in his eyes. He smiled faintly, though it did not reach the worry that lingered on his face. "We're fine," he said quietly. "Just waiting for someone." The boy, no more than 6 or 7, clung tightly to the man's hand. He had wide eyes that seemed to reflect both fear and curiosity. Lila knelt down to his level. "Do you have somewhere to stay tonight?" she asked gently. The boy shook his head, and the man hesitated for a moment before speaking. We don't," he admitted. "We were hoping to find a place, but it's hard at this hour." Lila felt a surge of compassion. She knew what it meant to be without a safe place to sleep, to face the cold and the rain with nowhere to go. Despite her exhaustion and the modest size of her apartment, she made a decision. "You can come with me," she said. "Just for the night. It's not much, but it's dry and safe." The man's eyes widened slightly in surprise. "Are you sure?" he asked. "I don't want to impose." Lila shook her head. "You're not imposing. Everyone deserves help when they need it. Come on, before you get any colder." The boy's face lit up with a small, grateful smile, and he squeezed the man's hand a little tighter. They followed Lila through the rain, slipping and splashing in the puddles until they reached her apartment building. Inside, Lila led them up the narrow staircase to her small apartment. She opened the door and motioned for them to enter. The warm air hit them, carrying the faint smell of tea and the scent of the little apartment. "This is it," Lila said, trying to sound cheerful. "It's small, but it's safe." The man looked around, taking in the cramped space, the simple furniture, and the worn-out cushions. "It's perfect," he said softly, as if trying to convince himself. Lila set about helping them get settled. She handed the boy a dry blanket and a small towel to dry off. She fetched some warm tea for the man and offered a few biscuits she had left from earlier. As they sat at the small table, the boy's shyness slowly faded, replaced by curiosity. He asked questions about the little apartment, about the teacups, about Sam, who was now awake and peeking from the bed. Lila smiled and answered as best she could, trying to keep the conversation light and comforting. The man, whose name she learned was Daniel, remained quiet for the most part, observing everything with a calm presence. He was polite, courteous, and seemed genuinely interested in Lila's words, though there was a subtle weariness that hinted at a life far removed from the simplicity of this apartment. Dinner was simple. Some bread, cheese, and soup that Lila had managed to scrape together from her small budget. They ate quietly, the rain tapping softly against the window, creating a rhythm that matched the gentle hum of conversation. Noah, the boy, finally relaxed and told stories about school and drawing. His laughter was a small, bright sound that filled the apartment with warmth. After dinner, Lila prepared the small bedroom for Daniel and Noah. The room had one bed, and she insisted they take it, while she would sleep on the couch. Daniel protested politely, but Lila was firm. "I can sleep anywhere," she said with a smile. "You and the boy need the bed more than I do." As they settled in, Lila couldn't help but feel a strange sense of calm. She had been cautious, weary of strangers, yet something about Daniel and Noah felt different. There was honesty in their eyes, a quiet respect and a kindness that mirrored her own values. She knew she had made the right choice in letting them stay. Before turning in herself, Lila sat by the window and watched the city lights flicker through the rain. She reflected on her life, on the struggles that seemed never-ending, and on the small moments of connection that made it all bearable. Tonight, despite her exhaustion and worries, she felt a sense of purpose. She had helped someone in need, and it had reminded her why she kept going every day. Daniel, lying in the bed, watched Lila quietly. He had traveled the world, seen wealth and power, yet he had rarely encountered someone as genuine and selfless as her. He was struck by her resilience, her kindness, and her unwavering commitment to her brother. He did not reveal anything about himself yet, preferring to experience the night simply as a guest, humbled by the generosity of a stranger. As the night deepened, the apartment grew quiet. Noah drifted off to sleep with a small smile on his face, clutching a drawing he had made earlier. Daniel remained awake for a while longer, thinking about the extraordinary act of kindness he had just witnessed. Lila, tired but content, finally settled onto the couch, feeling a small spark of hope amidst the uncertainty of her life. Outside, the rain continued to fall softly, washing the streets and carrying away the harshness of the day. Inside the small apartment, a quiet warmth lingered, born from human connection, empathy, and the simple act of offering shelter to those in need. For Lila, it was just one night, but for Daniel and Noah, it was a night they would never forget. A night that marked the beginning of an unexpected journey, where lives would intersect in ways neither could have imagined. The next morning, sunlight barely managed to seep through the thick curtains, casting a soft glow over the small apartment. Lila was already awake, moving quietly so as not to disturb Daniel and Noah. She went to the kitchen and boiled water for tea, her mind replaying the events of the previous night. She had offered help without hesitation, not knowing anything about her guests, and yet she felt no regret. There was something deeply satisfying about helping people in need, even if it meant sacrificing comfort or energy. Noah was the first to wake up, rubbing his eyes and yawning. He peeked around the small room, spotted Lila, and gave a shy smile. "Good morning," he said softly. "Good morning," Lila replied warmly. "Did you sleep well?" Noah nodded, his little shoulders rising and falling as he took a deep breath. "Yeah, thank you for letting us stay. It was warm and nice." Lila smiled, feeling a small spark of joy. She was used to hardship, and seeing gratitude even in small gestures made everything feel worthwhile. She quickly prepared a simple breakfast of toast, butter, and tea, and helped Noah sit comfortably at the small table. Daniel finally emerged from the bedroom, stretching slightly and smiling at Lila. He was dressed simply, still modest despite the polished appearance that hinted at a more refined life. "I didn't expect such a small place," he said with a soft laugh, taking a seat. "But it feels very welcoming." Lila shrugged lightly. "It's not much, but it's home. It's cozy, isn't it?" They ate quietly at first, the aroma of tea filling the apartment, mixing with the scent of toast. Noah chatted a little about the little things he had seen outside, the puddles in the street, the birds searching for food, and the passing cars. Lila listened, occasionally adding gentle comments or encouraging him to share more. She found herself relaxing in their company, appreciating their polite manners, and the way they seemed genuinely interested in connecting despite the circumstances. After breakfast, Lila suggested that they dry off their clothes. She handed Noah a towel and helped Daniel hang up his coat. The rain had stopped, leaving a fresh, earthy smell in the air. The small apartment, which usually felt cramped and limiting, now seemed alive with the presence of new friends. Even Sam, who had been shy at first, peeked from his bed and eventually joined them, curious about the strangers. As they settled in for the day, Lila showed Noah how to play a simple game with small wooden blocks she kept in a drawer. Noah's eyes lit up as he built little towers, knocking them down and laughing. Daniel watched quietly, occasionally offering advice in a calm and encouraging voice. Lila noticed the gentle patience he displayed with his son, something she admired. She realized that while Daniel seemed ordinary in his humility, there was a depth to his character that shone through in small, unnoticed gestures. They spent the morning sharing stories. Lila spoke about her life with Sam, the struggles they faced, and the little joys that kept them going. She spoke of her dreams, simple though they were, and her hopes for a better life. Noah, in turn, shared drawings he had made, shyly explaining each one. Daniel remained quiet, listening intently, occasionally asking questions, his eyes filled with a curiosity that went beyond small talk. He was respectful, not prying, but genuinely interested in their lives. By midday, Lila realized she needed to run a few errands. She asked Daniel and Noah if they wanted to come along, but Noah shook his head, preferring to stay in the apartment and continue his drawings. Daniel decided to stay as well, seeing no need to leave. Lila left with a basket, running small errands, like picking up bread, milk, and a few other necessities. She returned to find Noah drawing on the small table, and Daniel quietly watching, a soft smile on his face. The atmosphere in the apartment was calm, warm, and strangely comforting. As the afternoon passed, Daniel and Lila found themselves talking more deeply. He shared stories from his travels, not about wealth or business, but about the people he had met, the simple acts of kindness he had witnessed, and the lessons he had learned from strangers along the way. Lila listened, fascinated by the way he spoke, noticing that his words carried a humility rarely found in the people she met. Daniel, in turn, observed Lila with admiration. He noticed her resilience, her unwavering commitment to her brother, and her ability to find joy even in the smallest things. It struck him that she faced struggles that many would find overwhelming, yet she carried herself with grace and determination. He felt a quiet respect for her, a sense that there was something special about her character. Noah, sensing the bond forming between them, began to ask questions about Lila's life. "Do you like living here?" he asked innocently. Lila smiled softly. "It has its hard parts, but I like it. It's home and it's safe. I feel happy here most of the time." The boy nodded thoughtfully, then returned to his drawings. Daniel watched this interaction quietly, realizing that these small moments were shaping a memory that would stay with them forever. Evening approached, and the three of them helped Lila prepare dinner. It was a modest meal, but they laughed and shared stories, making the small apartment feel lively. Daniel complimented Lila on her cooking, which made her blush slightly, unused to receiving praise. Noah, as usual, was curious, asking questions about every ingredient and step, turning the meal into a fun learning experience. After dinner, they all sat together, playing simple games and sharing dreams. Lila felt a rare sense of connection, a warmth she hadn't experienced in a long time. She realized that helping others didn't just benefit them, it also gave her a renewed sense of hope and belonging. As the night deepened, Daniel and Noah prepared for bed again. Lila offered them the bed once more, insisting they take it while she would sleep on the couch. Daniel hesitated but finally accepted, showing a quiet gratitude that warmed Lila's heart. Noah climbed into the bed, clutching his drawings, and fell asleep quickly, exhausted from the day's excitement. Daniel remained awake for a while, sitting by the window and looking out at the quiet city. He thought about the unexpected kindness of this young woman, her unwavering dedication to her brother, and the gentle strength she displayed. He realized that he had never met anyone quite like her, and the experience left a lasting impression on him. Lila, tired but content, lay on the couch listening to the quiet breathing of the boy and the calm presence of the man in the bedroom. She reflected on the events of the day, on the small ways in which lives intersect, and on the importance of human connection. She realized that even in the midst of struggle, kindness could create moments of beauty and hope. Outside, the city settled into the night, and the rain had left the streets clean and shining under the streetlights. Inside the small apartment, a sense of peace lingered, born from the unexpected meeting of lives and the quiet bonds that were beginning to form. For Lila, it was another night of care, warmth, and the comforting feeling that doing good, no matter how small, could make a world of difference. Daniel, watching silently, knew that this experience would stay with him forever, a reminder that the simplest acts of kindness often held the deepest meaning. The night passed slowly, filled with quiet reflection, gentle thoughts, and a newfound sense of hope for all three of them. They had shared a day, a meal, and small moments of joy, and in that shared space they had found something unexpected. The beginnings of trust, friendship, and the knowledge that sometimes strangers could leave the most lasting impact on one's life. The morning came quietly, with soft sunlight filtering through the curtains. Lila was awake first as usual, her mind already racing with the day's tasks. She moved about the small apartment, tidying up and preparing a simple breakfast. The presence of Daniel and Noah had become familiar, almost comforting, and she found herself enjoying their company more than she expected. There was a warmth in the apartment now, a sense of life that had been missing for years. Noah stirred first, rubbing his eyes and giving Lila a sleepy smile. He climbed out of the bed carefully, careful not to wake his father. Lila handed him a small cup of tea and some toast. As he ate, he chattered quietly about what he wanted to draw today and the little things he noticed outside the window. Lila listened attentively, smiling at his curiosity and innocence. Daniel emerged soon after, stretching and looking around the small apartment with quiet interest. He thanked Lila softly for allowing them to stay, again expressing a humility that seemed almost natural to him. Lila shrugged, insisting it was no trouble at all. "Everyone deserves a safe place to stay sometimes," she said, pouring him a cup of tea. Breakfast passed with light conversation. Noah showed Lila a sketch he had drawn the night before, a small, colorful picture of the apartment with rain falling outside. Lila admired it and encouraged him to continue drawing, praising his creativity. Daniel watched this exchange quietly, a soft smile on his face, noticing how Lila's words lifted Noah's spirits. It reminded him of the importance of kindness, even in small doses. After breakfast, they spent the morning together in a rhythm that felt natural. Lila helped Noah with some small drawing exercises, teaching him about colors and shapes, while Daniel quietly observed, occasionally offering gentle suggestions. The apartment felt alive with their presence, the small space no longer feeling confined. Sam watched from his bed, occasionally joining in, his smile brightening Lila's heart. As the day progressed, Daniel and Lila found themselves talking more personally. Daniel shared stories of his travels, not about wealth or success, but about the people he had met and the lessons he had learned from simple acts of kindness around the world. Lila listened intently, fascinated by his experiences and the humility with which he shared them. There was a sincerity in him that made her feel at ease, as if she could trust him without hesitation. Daniel, in turn, observed Lila closely. He noticed the determination in her eyes, the way she cared for Sam, and the strength she carried despite her struggles. Her life was far from easy, yet she managed it with grace and patience. He found himself admiring her in ways he hadn't anticipated, seeing a kind of bravery and resilience that was rare and beautiful. Noah, sensing the growing bond between them, asked more questions about Lila's life. "Do you like your job?" he asked innocently. Lila laughed softly, shaking her head. "It's hard sometimes, but it helps me take care of my brother. I like that part." Noah nodded thoughtfully, then went back to his drawing. Daniel smiled at the boy, appreciating his innocence and curiosity. It was a reminder that even in the simplest of lives, there was room for joy and learning. By midday, Lila suggested they take a small walk outside as the rain had cleared. She wanted to show Noah the small park nearby, a place where he could run and play even if just for a short time. Daniel agreed, and they stepped out into the fresh, clean air. The streets glistened from the rain, and the city felt different somehow, softer and more alive. Noah ran ahead, laughing as he splashed in the remaining puddles while Daniel and Lila walked behind, talking quietly. During the walk, Lila shared stories about the neighborhood, the people she knew, and the little routines that made life manageable. Daniel listened carefully, genuinely interested, occasionally asking questions. He noticed how Lila's life, though challenging, was filled with acts of care, responsibility, and small joys that most people overlooked. It left a deep impression on him. They returned to the apartment in the late afternoon. Lila began preparing a small meal and Daniel helped in small ways, chopping vegetables and tidying the kitchen. Noah sat nearby, drawing and occasionally glancing up to watch them work. The atmosphere was relaxed and warm, filled with quiet laughter and conversation. Lila felt a strange sense of belonging, a reminder that human connection could make even the hardest days feel lighter. After dinner, they all sat together at the small table talking about dreams and hopes. Lila shared her vision of opening a small cafe one day, a place where she could provide simple meals and create a welcoming space for the neighborhood. Daniel listened, his interest genuine, and offered encouragement without making it feel like charity. Noah chimed in with ideas, eager to contribute, and Lila laughed at his enthusiasm. As the evening wore on, they played small games and shared stories, making the apartment feel alive with joy and warmth. Lila noticed Daniel's quiet attentiveness, how he seemed to appreciate the small details, the kindness, and the perseverance she displayed daily. She felt a connection forming, a silent understanding between them that went beyond words. Later, as they prepared for bed, Lila insisted once more that Daniel and Noah take the bed. While she would sleep on the couch, Daniel hesitated but eventually accepted, showing a quiet gratitude. Noah climbed in, clutching his drawings and drifting off to sleep with a small smile. Daniel remained awake for a while, sitting by the window and looking out at the quiet city, reflecting on the kindness he had encountered. Lila, lying on the couch, felt a rare sense of peace. The day had been filled with small joys, shared stories, and moments of understanding. She realized that even in the midst of struggle, there were moments that reminded her of the beauty of human connection. The presence of Daniel and Noah had brought warmth and hope into her life, a reminder that simple acts of kindness could create lasting impressions. Outside, the city settled into the night, calm and quiet. Inside the small apartment, there was a sense of comfort and trust, built slowly through shared experiences and genuine care. For Lila, Daniel, and Noah, the day had been more than just time spent together. It had been an experience of connection, empathy, and understanding that would shape the way they saw the world and each other. It was a day that marked the beginning of a deeper bond, one that would influence their lives in ways they had yet to fully realize. The next morning, the apartment was quiet, bathed in a soft, golden light. Lila was awake first, moving quietly to make tea and prepare a small breakfast. She enjoyed these quiet moments before the city fully woke, finding peace in the routine of daily life. Today, however, there was an unspoken sense that something had shifted since Daniel and Noah arrived. Their presence had brought a calm energy, a reminder that even strangers could leave lasting impressions on one's life. Noah stirred first, sleepy but cheerful. He climbed out of the bed and padded softly to the kitchen. Lila handed him a cup of tea and a slice of toast, and he sat at the small table, looking around with curiosity. "Can I draw again today?" he asked. "Of course," Lila replied, smiling. "Draw whatever you like. I want to see your ideas." Daniel emerged soon after, neatly dressed and calm. He greeted Lila quietly and accepted a cup of tea she offered. He seemed relaxed, almost at home, and Lila noticed a subtle warmth in his expression that she hadn't seen before. There was a depth in him that intrigued her, a quiet strength and humility that stood out amidst the world's chaos. They spent the morning in gentle rhythm. Noah drew while Lila and Daniel talked softly about simple things, the city, the neighborhood, and the small routines that made life manageable. Daniel was careful not to pry into Lila's personal struggles too much, but his interest in her life was genuine. He asked questions, listened attentively, and offered small words of encouragement, making Lila feel seen in a way few people had. Lila shared stories about Sam, about her jobs, and about her dreams. She had always been careful with her words, protecting herself from judgment, but Daniel's calm presence allowed her to speak freely. She told him about her hope to one day open a small cafe, a place that could bring comfort to the neighborhood. Daniel nodded thoughtfully, appreciating her determination and resilience. Noah, inspired by their conversation, began to draw a little scene of the cafe Lila described. His small hands worked carefully, and he proudly showed it to her. Lila praised his effort, encouraging him to keep imagining and creating. Daniel watched this quietly, noticing the way Lila's encouragement nurtured the boy's spirit. It was a simple act, yet it carried profound meaning. By midday, Lila suggested a short walk to the nearby park. The weather had cleared, and the air felt fresh and light. Noah ran ahead, delighted by the open space and the chance to play. Lila and Daniel walked together, their conversation flowing naturally. They spoke about life, about small joys, and about the unexpected ways in which people could influence each other's paths. Daniel shared memories from his travels, not about wealth or status, but about human experiences, kindness, and lessons learned from strangers. Lila listened, fascinated by his perspective. She realized that despite his seemingly ordinary demeanor, he carried wisdom and experience that few people possessed. Daniel, in turn, admired her strength, her ability to endure hardship, and her commitment to those she loved. He saw a rare blend of courage, kindness, and humility in her, a combination that left a lasting impression. Returning to the apartment in the late afternoon, they prepared a simple meal together. Lila cooked while Daniel assisted with small tasks, and Noah continued his drawings nearby. The apartment felt lively and warm, filled with laughter and conversation. Lila noticed the ease with which Daniel blended into her world, his quiet attentiveness making her feel appreciated and respected. After dinner, they all gathered at the small table, sharing stories and dreams. Lila spoke more about her hopes for the cafe, while Noah added imaginative ideas of his own. Daniel encouraged them both, offering insights without imposing, making the conversation feel collaborative and genuine. The evening passed with games, laughter, and shared reflections, the apartment now truly feeling like a place of comfort and connection. As night fell, Lila prepared the bedroom for Daniel and Noah. She insisted they take the bed and she would sleep on the couch. Daniel accepted with gratitude, and Noah climbed in happily, clutching his drawings. Lila watched them settle, feeling a sense of peace that she had rarely experienced. The simple act of providing shelter, warmth, and kindness had transformed the small apartment into a place of safety and hope. Daniel remained awake for a while, sitting by the window and observing the quiet city. He reflected on the unexpected kindness he had received and witnessed, on the strength and resilience of Lila, and on the joy that small gestures could bring. He realized that his life, though filled with wealth and status, had been missing these quiet, meaningful connections. Lila, lying on the couch, thought about the day. She realized that even in the midst of hardship, there were moments that reminded her of the beauty of human connection. She felt grateful for the strangers who had entered her life and brought warmth and hope. The presence of Daniel and Noah had reminded her that kindness, empathy, and trust could create bonds that changed lives. Outside, the city settled into a calm night, the streets quiet and glistening from the earlier rain. Inside the small apartment, a sense of trust, care, and warmth lingered. The experiences of the day had deepened their connection, building understanding and mutual respect. Lila felt a renewed sense of hope for herself and her brother, while Daniel reflected on the profound impact of simple kindness. The night passed with quiet reflection, gentle thoughts, and a deepening sense of trust and connection. For Lila, Daniel, and Noah, the day had been more than ordinary. It had been a series of small moments that strengthened bonds and reminded them of the power of empathy and generosity. They had shared laughter, stories, and dreams, creating memories that would remain long after the night ended. It was a day that marked the beginning of a journey none of them could have anticipated, one where lives intersected and hearts connected in meaningful ways. The following morning, the apartment was filled with a quiet energy. The sun streamed in gently, and the air felt crisp and new, carrying a sense of possibility. Lila was awake early as she usually was, moving quietly around the small apartment. She prepared a simple breakfast while reflecting on the previous days, the unexpected bond that had grown between her, Daniel, and Noah. It amazed her how strangers could become so familiar, bringing warmth and light into her world. Noah was the first to wake, as always. He climbed out of the bed and moved to the small kitchen, his little footsteps making soft noises on the worn floor. Lila handed him a cup of tea and a slice of toast, and he smiled, his eyes bright with curiosity. "Can we draw outside today?" he asked, his excitement barely contained. "Of course," Lila replied warmly. "The sun is out and it's perfect for drawing." Daniel emerged soon after, his expression calm yet thoughtful. He accepted the tea Lila offered and thanked her softly. There was a quiet respect in the way he interacted, a humility that made Lila feel at ease. The past few days had revealed his character slowly, a man of patience, kindness, and quiet wisdom. After breakfast, they prepared to go outside. Lila grabbed a few supplies for drawing and led the way to a small park nearby. Noah ran ahead, laughing and splashing in the remaining puddles from the earlier rain. Lila and Daniel walked slowly, enjoying the fresh air and the gentle warmth of the morning sun. As they walked, their conversation drifted to lighter topics, stories from their past, small dreams, and the little moments that made life meaningful. Once at the park, they found a quiet spot near the trees. Noah immediately set to work, drawing flowers, trees, and the sunlight filtering through the branches. Lila sat beside him, encouraging him, answering questions, and helping him with ideas. Daniel watched quietly, occasionally offering suggestions, but mostly letting the boy explore his creativity freely. The sight of Noah's joy and engagement warmed Lila's heart. It was a reminder that even small gestures and simple guidance could shape a child's experience. As the morning passed, Lila shared more about her life with Daniel. She spoke about Sam, her brother, and the challenges of raising him while managing jobs that barely covered their expenses. She spoke about her dreams, the little cafe she hoped to open one day, and her desire to create a safe and welcoming space for others in the neighborhood. Daniel listened attentively, impressed by her determination, resilience, and the kindness she extended despite the hardships she faced. Daniel, in turn, shared more about himself, carefully revealing glimpses of his life. He spoke not about wealth or power, but about experiences, lessons learned, and people who had impacted him. Lila listened, fascinated by his stories, noticing the sincerity and humility in his words. She realized that his life, though different from hers, had taught him to appreciate simple acts of kindness and human connection, something that resonated deeply with her own values. As noon approached, they returned to the apartment. Lila prepared a small lunch while Noah continued his drawings, now adding small sketches of the park and the people they had seen. Daniel helped where he could, his calm presence making even mundane tasks feel pleasant. The apartment, once quiet and subdued, now felt alive with warmth, laughter, and shared experiences. After lunch, Lila and Daniel sat together, discussing practical matters and small plans. He offered insights into how she could slowly work toward her dream of opening a cafe, sharing advice without making it feel overwhelming or forced. Lila felt encouraged, realizing that guidance and support could come from unexpected places, and that human kindness could open doors she hadn't thought possible. Noah, sensing the growing bond between them, became more engaged, asking questions and sharing ideas about the cafe and other dreams. His enthusiasm was infectious, and Lila couldn't help but laugh at his imaginative suggestions. Daniel joined in, turning the discussion into a collaborative, creative exchange that left everyone feeling energized and hopeful. As the afternoon passed, they continued to share stories and experiences. Lila spoke about small victories and challenges, the little moments that made her life meaningful despite the struggles. Daniel listened, offering empathy, encouragement, and occasional insights drawn from his own experiences. The atmosphere was relaxed, filled with warmth, understanding, and a sense of connection that transcended their initial meeting as strangers. Evening approached, and Lila began preparing dinner. The simple act of cooking together brought a sense of normalcy and comfort. Daniel assisted, chopping vegetables and tidying the kitchen while Noah continued drawing nearby. They shared quiet laughter, exchanged stories, and enjoyed each other's company. The small apartment had become more than a shelter. It was a space of trust, care, and human connection. After dinner, they gathered at the small table to reflect on the day. Lila spoke about her hopes and plans, while Daniel offered encouragement and gentle advice. Noah, proud of his drawings, shared them enthusiastically, adding imaginative explanations and stories. Lila praised his creativity, and Daniel nodded with approval. The evening passed in a rhythm of warmth, shared laughter, and gentle conversation, leaving a lingering sense of peace. As night fell, Lila prepared the bedroom once again. She insisted Daniel and Noah take the bed, while she would sleep on the couch. Daniel accepted, showing quiet gratitude, and Noah climbed in happily, clutching his drawings. Lila watched them settle, feeling a rare sense of peace and contentment. The simple acts of sheltering, nurturing, and connecting had transformed the apartment into a place of hope, warmth, and human connection. Daniel remained awake for a while, sitting by the window and looking out at the quiet city. He reflected on the past days, on the unexpected kindness he had experienced, and on the strength, resilience, and generosity of Lila. He realized that his life, though full of wealth and success, had been lacking in genuine human connection, and that the experiences of these days had reminded him of what truly mattered. Lila, lying on the couch, thought about the journey they had shared. She reflected on the kindness of strangers, the joy of simple moments, and the power of human connection. The presence of Daniel and Noah had brought warmth, hope, and a sense of belonging into her life. She felt grateful for the experiences they had shared, for the trust and care that had developed, and for the reminder that even small acts of kindness could create profound impacts. Outside, the city settled into a calm night, the streets quiet and glistening. Inside the small apartment, a sense of warmth, trust, and human connection lingered. The days had brought shared experiences, laughter, and stories, creating bonds that would endure long beyond this brief encounter. Lila, Daniel, and Noah had discovered that even in the midst of struggle and uncertainty, kindness, empathy, and trust could bring light, hope, and meaningful change into their lives. As they drifted into sleep, each carried with them the quiet knowledge that their lives had intersected in a meaningful way. They had shared more than shelter. They had shared understanding, support, and the kind of human connection that could transform hearts and lives. The night passed with peace, reflection, and the gentle warmth of bonds formed through empathy and kindness, marking the beginning of a journey none of them could have anticipated, but all of them would remember forever. The morning light poured into the apartment, warm and inviting, signaling another day filled with possibilities. Lila rose quietly, mindful of the soft breathing of Daniel and Noah in the bedroom. Today felt different somehow, though she could not put her finger on why. Perhaps it was the sense of connection that had grown between them over the past few days, or maybe it was the quiet hope that had begun to blossom in her heart. Lila moved to the small kitchen to make tea and prepare breakfast. She worked with careful attention, savoring the simple routine that anchored her days. Noah stirred awake, his small face lighting up when he saw her moving about. He climbed down from the bed and padded into the kitchen, his enthusiasm soft but contagious. "Good morning," he said, his voice cheerful. "Can we go outside to draw again?" "Of course," Lila replied, smiling. "The sun is shining and the day is perfect for drawing." Daniel emerged soon after, quiet and composed. He accepted the tea she offered and thanked her softly, his expression thoughtful. The past few days had shown him the strength and resilience of Lila, qualities he admired deeply. There was something remarkable about her ability to face challenges with grace and kindness, even when her own life was difficult. Breakfast was simple, yet it carried a warmth beyond the food itself. They ate together, sharing quiet conversation and gentle laughter. Noah spoke excitedly about the drawings he planned to create, and Lila encouraged him, offering ideas and gentle guidance. Daniel watched them both, appreciating the natural bond that had formed. The apartment, once quiet and lonely, now felt alive with human connection, filled with laughter, care, and a sense of family. After breakfast, they gathered their drawing materials and headed to the park nearby. The sunlight streamed through the trees, casting patterns on the ground, and the air was filled with the fresh scent of grass and flowers. Noah ran ahead, eager to explore and begin drawing, while Lila and Daniel walked together, their conversation flowing naturally. They spoke about dreams, simple joys, and the importance of helping others. Daniel shared more stories from his travels, focusing on the small acts of kindness he had witnessed and the lessons they had taught him. Lila listened intently, finding inspiration in his experiences and appreciating the humility with which he spoke. She realized that despite the differences in their lives, they shared values that connected them deeply: empathy, generosity, and a desire to make a positive impact. Noah settled under a tree, spreading out his papers and pencils, drawing the sunlight, the park, and the people around him. Lila sat beside him, encouraging his creativity and marveling at his imagination. Daniel observed quietly, offering occasional suggestions but mostly allowing the boy to explore freely. The simple act of nurturing creativity and curiosity became a shared joy that bound them together. As the morning passed, Lila spoke more about her life, her struggles, and her hopes. She told Daniel about the challenges of supporting Sam, the endless work, and the small victories that kept her going. Daniel listened with quiet attentiveness, his respect for her growing with each word. He saw in her a rare combination of resilience, kindness, and humility that left a profound impression. By midday, they returned to the apartment, bringing with them a sense of fulfillment and contentment. Lila prepared a small lunch while Noah continued to sketch, now adding colorful details inspired by the park. Daniel assisted where he could, chopping vegetables and tidying the kitchen. The apartment, once a modest space of necessity, had become a place of warmth, laughter, and shared experiences. After lunch, they sat together, reflecting on the past days. Daniel gently revealed more about himself, not in terms of wealth or status, but the life lessons he had learned and the values he held dear. Lila listened, intrigued and respectful, recognizing the sincerity in his words. She realized that his life had taught him to appreciate human connection in a way that aligned with her own experiences. Despite their different circumstances, Noah, inspired by their conversation, eagerly shared his thoughts and drawings, asking questions about life and possibilities. Lila encouraged him, praising his curiosity and creativity, while Daniel contributed gentle guidance and support. The atmosphere was one of learning, growth, and shared discovery. It became clear that their time together was shaping not just memories, but understanding, empathy, and hope for the future. As evening approached, Lila prepared a modest dinner. Daniel helped in small ways, offering assistance without making it feel obligatory. Noah sat nearby, continuing his sketches, occasionally glancing up to show his progress. The apartment felt full of life, a space where trust, care, and warmth flourished. Lila felt a deep satisfaction, knowing that her kindness had created a space where others could feel safe and nurtured. After dinner, they gathered at the small table to share reflections, stories, and dreams. Lila spoke about her vision for a cafe. Daniel offered encouragement and insights without imposing, and Noah contributed imaginative ideas with enthusiasm. The conversation flowed naturally, filled with laughter, gentle guidance, and genuine connection. Each of them felt seen, valued, and supported in ways that went beyond words. Later, as night fell, Lila prepared the bedroom once again, insisting that Daniel and Noah take the bed while she would sleep on the couch. Daniel accepted with quiet gratitude, and Noah climbed into the bed happily, clutching his drawings. Lila watched them settle, feeling a rare sense of peace and fulfillment. The simple acts of shelter, guidance, and shared presence had transformed the apartment into a place of hope and meaningful connection. Daniel remained awake for a while, sitting by the window and observing the quiet city. He reflected on the past days, on the unexpected kindness he had experienced, and on the remarkable qualities of Lila. Her resilience, generosity, and empathy had left a lasting impression, reminding him that the most valuable aspects of life were often found in small, heartfelt actions. Lila, lying on the couch, thought about the journey they had shared. She considered the unexpected encounters, the moments of laughter, the shared stories, and the growing bonds. She realized that even in the midst of struggle, kindness and human connection could create profound change, not just for others, but for herself as well. Outside, the city settled into a calm night. The streets glistened softly under the streetlights, and a gentle quiet prevailed. Inside the apartment, a sense of warmth, trust, and deep human connection lingered. Lila, Daniel, and Noah had shared days filled with learning, creativity, support, and genuine care. Their experiences had created bonds that would endure, shaping their perspectives, hopes, and understanding of one another. As they drifted into sleep, each carried a quiet awareness of the impact they had had on each other's lives. They had shared more than time. They had shared empathy, encouragement, and the power of small acts of kindness. The night passed with a peaceful understanding that their encounter, brief though it seemed, had left an indelible mark on their hearts, a reminder that the simplest gestures of care could create lasting change and hope. The sun rose slowly over the city, casting a gentle warmth across the small apartment where Lila, Daniel, and Noah had spent the past several days together. The routine of morning had become familiar, yet each day carried a sense of anticipation, a feeling that something new was unfolding. Lila awoke first, as always, and moved quietly to the kitchen, her mind filled with thoughts about the past days and the growing connection between them. She began preparing breakfast, her movements deliberate and calming. There was a comfort in the simple routine, a grounding force that reminded her of the stability she had longed for in her chaotic life. The aroma of brewing tea and freshly toasted bread filled the small apartment, creating a sense of warmth and home. Noah stirred, rubbing his eyes, and smiled as he saw Lila moving about. He climbed down from the bed and joined her in the kitchen, his excitement evident. "Can we go to the park again today?" he asked, his voice filled with curiosity and joy. "Of course," Lila replied warmly. "The day is perfect for it." Daniel appeared shortly after, quiet and thoughtful. He accepted the tea she offered and thanked her, his tone gentle and sincere. Over the past days, he had come to appreciate the strength, kindness, and resilience Lila displayed, qualities that left a deep impression on him. There was a quiet respect in the way he interacted, an acknowledgement of the challenges she faced and the grace with which she faced them. Breakfast passed with light conversation and laughter. Noah shared his plans for new drawings, eager to capture the world around him. Lila encouraged him, praising his creativity and imagination. Daniel observed quietly, noting the warmth and care in Lila's interactions and the joy that filled the room. The apartment, once a simple shelter, had transformed into a space of connection, growth, and shared humanity. After breakfast, they gathered drawing materials and headed to the park nearby. The air was fresh and crisp, carrying the scent of grass and blooming flowers. Noah ran ahead, laughing and exploring, while Lila and Daniel walked behind, their conversation flowing naturally. They spoke of dreams, small joys, and the importance of kindness in daily life. Daniel shared more stories from his travels, focusing on the lessons learned from simple acts of compassion and empathy. Lila listened intently, finding resonance in his words and inspiration for her own aspirations. Noah settled under a tree, spreading out his papers and pencils, capturing the sunlight, the trees, and the small details of the park. Lila sat beside him, encouraging his efforts and offering guidance when he asked. Daniel observed quietly, appreciating the boy's creativity and the way Lila nurtured it. There was a profound sense of satisfaction in watching this interaction, a reminder of how small acts of care could influence a child's life and spirit. As the morning passed, Lila shared more about her personal journey, her responsibilities with Sam, the challenges she faced, and the small victories that kept her moving forward. Daniel listened with deep attention, his respect for her resilience growing. He realized that despite the hardships of her life, she had cultivated a spirit of empathy and kindness that was rare and valuable. By midday, they returned to the apartment, bringing with them a sense of fulfillment and peace. Lila prepared a modest lunch while Noah continued to sketch, his drawings now capturing moments from the park. Daniel assisted where needed, chopping vegetables and tidying the kitchen, adding a quiet presence that enhanced the calm atmosphere. The apartment had become more than a living space. It was a sanctuary of trust, care, and shared experience. After lunch, they spent time reflecting on the past days. Daniel gently shared more about his life, offering insights and experiences without the weight of expectation. Lila listened, appreciating his sincerity and the humility in his words. Their conversations deepened their understanding of each other, bridging the gap between their different lives through shared values of kindness, empathy, and connection. Noah, inspired by the discussions, eagerly contributed his own ideas and questions. Lila encouraged his curiosity, praising his imaginative thinking while Daniel offered thoughtful guidance. The atmosphere was one of learning, growth, and mutual respect, with each person feeling supported and valued. These moments reinforced the importance of small gestures, the power of empathy, and the impact of genuine human connection. As the afternoon unfolded, they continued to share stories, laughter, and experiences. Lila spoke about her vision for the future, the cafe she dreamed of opening, and the ways she hoped to create a welcoming space for her community. Daniel offered advice and encouragement, emphasizing practical steps while honoring her ambitions and dreams. Noah's enthusiasm added energy and creativity, making the discussions lively and engaging.